Not working. Our Facebook. I am just trying to go live here on Instagram at the same time. Give me 1 second. No error with your broadcast. Okay, 1 minute. I will be not too long here. Live. Go live. Not working. Okay, forget about Instagram. Hello, my friends on Facebook. Something that has been on my mind a lot lately is the way that conscious women are struggling in the relationship with men who are not on some kind of spiritual or growth journey. So I'm trying to use language here that is going to fit for all of us. I'm talking about women who maybe are going to therapy, they're reading self help books, they have come into an understanding of their conditioning and how it's affected them in their adult life. They are thinking deeply about the relationship to themselves or thinking about the relationship to others, but particularly to their husband, and through this experience are gaining a higher level of desire. They want more from themselves. They've had a taste of emotional freedom. They've had a taste of their own power. They've had a taste of how they can create their own reality and how they can have just a beautiful existence, just a very expanded and creative and beautiful life. And here they are with a husband who is not going to therapy, is probably not interested in therapy. He's not interested in quantum energetics. He's not interested in having a conscious relationship. And she doesn't know what to do with him, right? She's like wanting more from this relationship and she's going through a transformation. Probably motherhood started it and then midlife kicked it into high gear. And now she's becoming this different person. She's becoming a new person. She's transforming on every level. And her husband is pretty much the same person as he was before. And actually, she might have noticed some declines in him. Maybe he's gotten more negative in his thinking. Maybe he's not taking care of himself physically, and maybe he's generally resistant to these new ideas and concepts that she's bringing to him. So here's where this gets really sticky, is when you go out into the internet and into the conscious relationship world, they'll say that can't last. The general dogma in the spiritual community is if you have two people existing on this plane and then one person starts elevating their consciousness till it's elevating their awareness, they will not be able to stay in a relationship with someone who's not doing that. And I say not true at all. I think that is cheap spirituality. I think that is one of the most limited mindsets I can absolutely imagine from a community who says you can do anything and have anything you want. And it's really damaging a lot of people's love lives. And it's leading to depression. It's leading to divorce. It's leading to situations that really don't need to be that way. So let me tell you why. If you're here with your husband, maybe you had, similar childhood conditioning that led you to come together in good ways and bad, and you have some of these, not so pretty ways of relating to each other and lots of good ways of relating to each other. And I'm speaking in this context of a traditional man's man. So your husband is hardworking, he is loyal, he is providing, he is consistent, like he is rooted to the ground. And this is what I want to describe to you. A traditional, healthy, masculine man is rooted to who he is, to the earth, to practical realities of life. So it's not in his nature to be thinking about expansive possibilities the way that it is in your nature to do that. That as soon as you got wind of all this cool possibility in the spiritual world, you were like, oh, this sounds fantastic. I'm going to explore this. I'm going to check it out, right? Because there's this radical openness that you experience as a woman. Women go through changes all their lives, right? It's in our nature. We have a cyclical month. We change every week around the month. We change from when we were children to when we hit puberty to when we become mothers. Every time we have a child, it's called matrescence. It transforms us on a core physical, emotional, spiritual level. This happens again when we hit menopause and we move into our crone phase. We get a different kind of wisdom, different kind of awareness, different ability to stand up for ourselves. So when we go through all these and we say, I've gone through all these things, amazing, and my husband, he never changes. He's just the same. He's a stick in the mud. What we're doing is we're judging him based on our standards of how women develop across a lifetime around women who change. What changes do we see in men? We see changes. We see changes when they go from uh, the night phase, as Alison Armstrong calls it, where they're just out and having fun and adventuring and conquering. When they move into the building phase, maybe they have a family and kids, they're building the career, they're super focused on that, focused on providing for their family, and then moving into midlife, where they often hit a midlife crisis. Now, midlife crises are especially vicious for people who have been very, very stable and dutiful up to that point. So if you have a husband who you think might be going through a midlife crisis, it's because he was trying so hard to do the right thing by society and by his family and by his conditioning, and now he's going to hit a brick wall of, is this me and is it what I really want? Women typically don't hit it in such a stark way because we go through transformations over and over and over and over again through our lives and don't have the ability to just compartmentalize and not notice ourselves for so long. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that we have radically different trajectories. We know this statistically. The majority, 80% of self-help books are read by women. We know the consciousness movement is 80% women. We know couples therapy is mostly initiated by women. And in our society and in these rooms, it's said, well, man, why can't they? Why don't they? We judge them and vilify them as less than, less evolved, less spiritual, less with it, because they are not behaving and acting like the majority of women. If you get sucked into this paradigm, your relationship will not last. If it does last, it will be tepid at best, because you will be judging, pitying, looking down on, tolerating your husband instead of celebrating his gifts, admiring him, and respecting him for what he brings to the table. Now, what he brings to the table is the perfect counterbalance to who you are. A man who is emotionally and physically stable, who does not change that much, that provides security, that provides psychological safety. That is the container inside of which you have the wonderful opportunity to blossom, transform, explore, and have this expansive external experience. He doesn't need to have the same experiences that you do. Just because they're fabulous for you doesn't mean he requires the same kind of thing. Instead, you can look at him and say, thank you. Thank you for being the tree trunk that I can lean against. Thank you for being the rock that doesn't move. Thank you for your unyielding nature. Thank you for always loving me and not putting that into question and accepting me for who I am. Now, I know everybody's got all kinds of different situations, different kind of men, but I'm particularly addressing now the situation of the woman who is going through this transformation and looking at her husband and wondering what this means for them. So bottom line, I could talk about this for hours. I'm actually thinking of writing a book on it. If you'd be interested in a book about the conscious woman's guide to her man's man, comment me, message me. I want to hear your stories because this is so strongly on my heart right now. I feel it is such a lie that you have to leave or your relationship will naturally fall apart if you're not both doing the work, if you're not both on a journey. It's just not true. And here's how I know for sure. The definition of a conscious life is radical responsibility and choice, which means if you're a conscious woman, you can do whatever you want and you can have whatever you want. Things don't happen to you. It's not his fault what happens to you. You choose what happens to you. You create your life. So you do have the option of saying, I don't want to be in a relationship with a man who's not on a spiritual journey and ending it. But that would simply be you choosing what you want. You do have the option of saying, this person's unhealed wounds seem to be impacting me negatively. I don't want that. But nothing just happens. This is your choice. And here's the next layer of it. Often when we just become aware of our power, we only become so aware to recognize how we're mistreated and go, oh, wait, why am I tolerating the disrespect? Why am I tolerating the neglect? Why am I doing this? And all we know is to say no and stand up to it. We haven't gained the nuance of how to inspire and how to create a new connection with our partner. He doesn't need to be doing the work for this to happen. It's actually the differences between you that creates the tension of sexual interest, that creates passion. You do not want him to be exactly the same as you. I will even go so far as to say I have been watching conscious relationships around me crumble. Leaders, coaches, people in the space who prize what I would call the spiritual conscious relationship. Those relationships are founded on individuals following their own truth. That means the highest law, the highest good in that relationship is that each individual does what each individual feels to be most true to them. It is guaranteed that a relationship will end when that is your highest truth. No two people are exactly going to have the same truth all the time and in all the ways that always align. It doesn't work that way. What works is putting your union, your marriage, the relationship, the dyad as your highest truth, and then finding alignment, creating alignment within that. The reason this works is because then you can weather seasons. Then people can transform and come through to the other side. If you call it quits every time the truth doesn't match, there's going to be 5 or 6 or 7 opportunities in your marriage to do that, because all of a sudden you were going this way, they were going that way. There was a rupture. There was a break of trust. There was something that you went, well, this is not what I want, so I'm done. But if what you want at your core, if your highest desire is a real life love story, a love story that goes through your whole life until you die, where you weather all the seasons, where you grow deeper together, where you can say, we had each other's back through thick and thin, and hold hands in your old age, then that has to be your highest truth, not a spiritual conscious relationship. Because women are sacrificing their husbands on the altar of the spiritual conscious relationship, but that's not actually what they want. They want to have a loving relationship with the man they already chose, with the man they fell in love with, but they have been brainwashed with the belief that they can't have that unless he does the work, unless he gets spiritual, unless he goes to therapy. And that's not true. It wasn't true in my marriage. It's not true in my client's marriage, because the more elevated your consciousness is, the more power you have to create your life. The more influence you have, the more inspiration you have, the more your aura just radiates. This is like woo-woo stuff. But if you're in this world, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not quite there yet, that's okay. Comment below, ask questions, send me messages. I just see this carnage of good people separating, of women moving on and starting over, because they think they need to find a man who's on the same path that they're on. And listen, if that is what you care about the most, I will not judge you, because every person has to make their own choice. But if you, like many of my clients, have some variety of this fear, I'm afraid that we won't last. I'm afraid we're growing apart. I'm afraid we're too different. But what I deeply desire is to have that connection with him, to have the intimacy, to have the passion, to have this like true sharing of souls. But I'm afraid I can't have it unless he does A, B, and C. Do you see how you've outsourced your power? I want these things, but I can't have it unless he does A, B, and C. You're no longer in your power seat. You are now in your victim mentality, where he must do something for you to have something you want. Of course, at the extreme cases, this is true. If your husband is cheating on you with tons of women, if he's addicted to all kinds of drugs. But here's the wild thing. There are women who choose to stay with men who are in their addiction and say, I'm going to do it because I want to. You can find a way to be sane and conscious and not self-abandon in any type of relationship. It's truly just your choice. Now, most women are not cut out for that, not made for that, and would not be able to hold their power in the face of such disrespectful and abusive behavior. But I'm using the extreme example to illustrate that whatever thing in your relationship is triggering you right now, and you're saying, I don't think I can tolerate this discomfort, I don't think I can handle it anymore, can possibly be transformed through you alone, because you are co-creating that dynamic with your husband. He is not just doing something to you, which you are a blank slate, a neutral party. You are hooked into the dynamic on some kind of energetic and emotional level. And when you unhook from that, in your own inner work, in your own journey, all this beautiful stuff that we love to do, somatically, with breath, with inner child work, with tapping, with whatever modalities you use and I use, all of a sudden you can create a different standard in your marriage. You can create a different dynamic. Just the same as we know that the more healthy you are in dating, the more healthy partners you allow into your life, You can do that with the same man while you're still married to him. You can come to a place where you only welcome a certain kind of treatment, where you only engage with a certain kind of energy in your partnership. And this is not about putting up big walls and setting ultimatums. None of that works. None of it is effective. Unless you're actually going to walk, unless you're actually ready to walk, fine, walk. But don't use it as a tactic. It's very dangerous and manipulative. The power you have to transform the entire character of your relationship beyond your dreams, beyond what you'd ever experienced, beyond how this person has ever treated you is possible. And I have never shared this stuff so directly because I didn't want people to look at me and say, you're nuts, you're crazy, this fantasy. I've done it in my marriage. I've seen it with my clients. It's not a fantasy. You can have so much more simply through the work that you do with yourself, through the way that you learn to shift the dynamic between you. This is my magical marriage program. You can come in at so many different levels to learn how to create magic. Message me, sign up for my free connection assessment where you'll learn exactly what are these energetic blocks, how are you blind to the ways that you're holding yourself back from what you want to receive, and how can you shift it so all of a sudden you do a 180 and you are in an upward spiral where your husband is giving you more love, more affection, more respect, more support, more romance. It's all possible for you. And so if you're like me, one of the dreamers, one of the believers, somebody who wants to have the highest experience of love that is also devoted for an entire lifetime, message me and we'll get you started. I can't wait to hear from you.